On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect.
The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Hi, folks. Let me see if I can sum up Midnight Burger in about 25 seconds.
Really, big monster?
Zero irony.
Congratulations! You are a prisoner of the Ted Empire.
Leaf dated an orb one time.
An orb?
The radio is talking to me.
A space pirate?
This is the stupidest dystopia we've ever been to. Yeah, that didn't work at all. At the nexus of all things, there is a diner. Look for Midnight Burger on your favorite podcasting app or just go to weopenat6.com.
This content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion advised.
Then I noticed just how creepy his smile was. It was too wide, like stretched, and he wasn't blinking.
They were all crouching in the brush, wearing torn-up clothes and faces that looked like lions waiting for their prey.
Inside was an eerie, satanic-looking drawing. It was impossible to fully decode, but what I did decipher made my blood run cold.
From Killer Podcasts, true tales of horror, bizarre happenings, unexplainable events. This is Disturbed. Hello, and welcome back to the show. This week, we have 5 inexplicable stories that will make you rethink everything. So sit back, listen closely, and dive into the horror. In our first story, a stranger waits for his prey. Narrated by Sinn. From Reddit user Guy the Finance Guy.
This was the scariest moment of my life. It was 2016. I was in my freshman year of university, and myself and a few friends decided it would be a lovely idea to travel just outside of the town to catch the sunset. There was this popular spot at the top of a hill we wanted to visit, and we planned on hotboxing our friend's car and getting super stoned while we enjoyed the view. For some context, I live in a pretty dangerous country where you do have to be pretty aware of your surroundings at all times. Even though it was a student town, it still had its fair share of robberies, muggings, and even the occasional stabbing or murder. You do, however, get used to it once you're an adult. Eventually, everyone has some kind of experience that knocks them out of their naivete and teaches them that things can happen. This was my wake-up call. The spot we went to did have its fair share of muggings and scares over the years. But we didn't even think twice. It was usually filled with locals and students alike at sunset, and we were all too young to know to worry about that stuff yet. We pulled up when the sun still had about 45 minutes of visibility and began the smoking session. Everything was going well. We were cracking jokes, talking about class, and relieving stress after a really intense week. At some point, I realized that there were no other cars around us. You'd think that'd be a red flag, and maybe it should have been, but I was thrilled. It wasn't the biggest deal to get caught with weed, but it was illegal, so I wasn't super comfortable smoking in public. The solitude gave me the space to just relax with my friends and let my guard down. Just after the sunset, when the sky was dim, I caught a glimpse of something moving out of the corner of my eye. I turned, and off to my right, there was a group of bushes no more than 20 feet away. At first glance, it looked like nothing was there, But then I caught a pair of eyes. There was a man crouching, trying to hide from sight. I instinctually snapped my head back forward, afraid the man would know I spotted him. My mind raced, trying to find a good explanation for why he'd be hiding. But I couldn't come up with anything. As casually as possible, I turned again, hoping to get a better look that would answer my questions. This time, I didn't just see one man. I saw 4. They were all crouching in the brush, wearing torn-up clothes and faces that looked like lions waiting for their prey. They were intensely focused. My heart started beating faster and faster. These guys must have been waiting for us to leave the car so they could rob us. I turned to my friend who was driving and nearly shouted, "There are guys waiting in the bushes. You need to drive the fuck out of here." Without a moment's hesitation, he spun the car around and sped out onto the road. I craned my neck backwards, and sure enough, 2 of the men had left their position and were headed toward us. I locked eyes with one of them, the first one I had spotted. He wasn't trying to catch us. There was no way he could on foot. But he had this look of frustration in his eye. He knew he had missed his chance. Of course, we were all quite shaken up. When we got back home and were just so grateful we never left the car and noticed them when we did. The best case scenario was that they were going to mug us. I still to this day try to avoid thinking about the worst case. They seemed desperate, and desperation can lead to some truly horrible things.
Next, a college grad gets approached by an odd customer. Narrated by Laura Lockwood from Reddit user Pizdamati67.
I work in a clothing store on the main street of my town. I've worked here on and off for years as I got through college, and now that I've graduated, the easiest thing was to come back. Obviously, I'd rather have a job related to my degree in environmental science, but finding one has been difficult. Over the years, I've become very familiar with the store. The merchandise, the customers, my coworkers. It's not glamorous, but it's comfortable, at least. Or, at least it was. The other day, I was rearranging some stuff when one of my coworkers came up to me. She had this weird look on her face and stepped just a bit too close in a way that she never had before. As I opened my mouth to say something, she spoke in this hushed tone. "There's this guy here," she said. "He's acting weird, and he asked to borrow a pen and paper. I don't know why, but he's giving me the creeps." She nodded toward the man in question. He was in his 40s and dressed in a manner that would make you think he picked up random pieces of clothing from the street. But the pieces weren't ragged. It was a hodgepodge of styles and dark colors that had absolutely little to do with each other. He wasn't homeless, he was just eccentric, I guess. But his clothes weren't the concerning part. It was his demeanor. Something about the look on his face and the way he skulked about like he was hiding something. I told her I'd keep an eye on him and went back to folding. 10 minutes later, after I'd finished what I was doing, I went over to check in on my coworker at the register. As I was heading towards her, she turned to me and gave me a seriously concerned look. I must have looked visibly confused because she quietly snapped at me. "Go in the back now. I'll tell you later." I trusted her, so I headed to the back, wondering what the hell happened. I paced around for a few minutes before she joined me and told me what was going on. "The creepy guy said that he's in love with you. He left this." She handed me a folded piece of paper. Nervously, I took the paper and unfurled it. Inside was an eerie, satanic-looking drawing. Text at the bottom that was mostly illegible, and another smaller drawing with crosses and pentagrams. It was impossible to fully decode, but what I did decipher made my blood run cold. He was in love with me. He loved this belt I had and wanted to get to know me. I knew exactly the belt he was talking about. I wasn't wearing it then, but it was something I wore to work often. He had been watching me for God knows how long. The message also said something about queen and flames, but most of it was pure gibberish and freaky drawings. My coworker told me he had left, but that he said he'd be back to ask for my number. At this point, I was shaking. We didn't have security in my store, so I called my manager, who wasn't on shift. She said he probably wouldn't do anything else, and that I could just go to the back if he showed up again, and my coworkers could tell him I wasn't interested. Obviously, I felt very unsafe, and I was frustrated that my manager wasn't willing to do more. I considered asking to be moved to a different location, but more than anything, I was angry. I'm aware this guy is unwell and most likely he deals with some mental health issues, but I was angry that people get to do this creepy stuff and lay their head on their pillow at night while ruining my well-being, leaving me anxious and terrified. I had worked at this place safely for years, and now the idea of heading in every day made my chest tight. For the next few days, I just dealt with it. I kept going to work and did my best to calm myself down. Then, today, during my shift, he returned. At the time, my back was to the door and I was busy folding clothes. He came in without me noticing and made a beeline right toward me. Completely unaware, just happened to step into the back right before he reached me, and the door basically closed in his face. My coworkers watched the whole thing in horror, and I got to see it on the security cameras later. He then tried asking my coworker about me. She lied to him, saying my shift ended and that I was headed home. As soon as she could, my coworker came to the back and told me what happened. From there, we watched him hang around the door on the security camera for 10 minutes before finally giving up and leaving. I have no idea what he was planning on doing, and I have no idea if it's safe to go to work tomorrow.
Disturbed will return in a moment. A good wardrobe should be simple. A few pieces that fit well, feel good, and last. That's what Quince does really well. Quince has the everyday essentials I love with quality that lasts. The Flow Knit Performance Jogger is by far my favorite comfort clothing, but Quince has even more to offer. I ordered their European linen sheets, and I've slept like a baby ever since. They work directly with top factories and cut out the middlemen. You're not paying for big brand markups or fancy retail stores, just quality clothing. That cashmere polo, I wear it more than I thought I would. Looks good, feels expensive, actually affordable. Stop overcomplicating your wardrobe. You don't need a closet full of options. You need a few pieces that actually work. Right now, go to quince.com/disturbed for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to build your wardrobe and love it. And you will. Now available in Canada, too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/disturbed for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/disturbed. I don't like wasting money, and for years that's exactly what I was doing with my wireless bill. Big carriers love to sneak in fees, bump up prices, and charge you for perks you never asked for. I finally got fed up and switched to Mint Mobile. I've been using Mint for 3 years, and I've been telling everyone to make the switch. Mint exists purely to fix the whole overpaying for wireless thing. Their premium wireless plans start at just $15 a month. You get high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. I kept my phone, kept my number, activated with an eSIM in minutes, and that was it. No long-term contracts, no drama. Compared to my old provider, I'm saving a serious amount every month. Ditch overpriced wireless and get 3 months of premium wireless service from Mint Mobile for $15 a month. If you like your money, Mint Mobile is for you. Shop plans at mintmobile.com/disturbed. That's mintmobile.com/disturbed. Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month 5GB plan required, equivalent to $15 a month. New customer offer for the first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. In our next story, a new lover reveals his darkest desires. Narrated by Akisha Archer from an anonymous Reddit user.
So 9 years ago, there was this guy I was casually talking to. I was going through a tough time and he knew that. Randomly at like 2 a.m., he just shows up outside my dorm in his car, pretty much pleading with me to come out to visit him. Eventually, I conceded. I came out to his car and he was so charismatic, but something unnerved me. He asked me to get in and made me feel a bit silly for being so reluctant to get in. I told him that before I got in, I'd have to send my mom his name, number, and photo. I didn't know this guy super well, and I could feel how tense my body was while I was outside his car. At the same time, though, I wasn't worried. It's as if my body caught on to something my mind hadn't. He gave me his name and number, but smooth-talked his way out of the photo. I got in, but I told him not to turn the car on. We just sat there and chatted for a bit until I felt comfortable leaving. I can't really emphasize enough how flirtatious and charismatic this guy was. He was so assuring and said he'd buy me something to eat because I was hungry. He drove to a fast food joint and we placed an order. As we were waiting in line for the second window, he turned to me and took a photo of me with flash. It was completely out of the blue and really creeped me out. We weren't dating, so it didn't make any sense. When I pressed him about it, he gave me a bunch of non-answers and sweet-talked me out of being angry. Eventually, he took me home, and when he dropped me off, he made a comment that raised another yellow flag. He said something like, "I brought you back," and I thought, well, of course you did. What else would you do? It felt odd, but it wasn't concerning enough to outweigh his charm. Weeks pass and he shows up again at 3 a.m. I went with him. He was as fun as ever, but time passed and I realized we were headed somewhere much further away than last time. I also noticed an open 24-pack of beer sitting in the back seat. A while later, we arrived in a quiet neighborhood where he said he was staying. We approached a normal-looking house, and he pulled out one single key from his pocket, which I thought was weird. He opened the door, and inside was almost a time capsule. The house was furnished like an old person had lived there for 50 years and hadn't changed a thing. There was even a box TV in the bedroom. He told me a friend owned the place and was letting him stay there, but things weren't adding up. Before I could ask any questions, I felt a cold piece of metal press into my temple. I knew immediately it was the barrel of a gun. Thankfully, I was able to keep calm. I had recognized the rattle of babies as it had moved up to my head. So I knew he wasn't trying to kill me. It was some kind of sick game. I asked if he was being serious, and he didn't speak. A long moment passed. It was silent, other than the sounds of our breath. Then, he slowly lowered the rifle. From that point on, it was like he didn't know what to do with me. He had no belongings there aside from the clothes on his back and his laptop. We looked out on the balcony and watched a movie with me on some pirated website. I know I should have left, but at this point, I was doing risk assessment, and I thought it was safer to just go along. We hooked up, too. Afterwards, he tried to shave my pubic area. I immediately stopped him by grabbing his wrist, calmly. That seemed to work, and he backed off. After that, he pulled out his phone and showed me pictures of a blonde woman he used to be with, talking about her like he couldn't see her again. I was nice and just listened. He got a bit emotional. The next morning, he was reluctant to take me home, but gave in after I was persistent. As we were leaving, I caught a glance at some official-looking crumpled papers in his console. I saw his name, but the surname I didn't recognize. That's when I realized he had given me a fake name. He drove me home without incident, and shortly after, his Instagram had vanished. He had multiple faceless accounts that he deleted too. I never talked to him again. 2 years later, I saw he uploaded a story to Snapchat. Lo and behold, it's my picture of me in his car that first night he saw me. I didn't say anything, but he knew I saw it. It's been 9 years, and that whole experience still keeps me awake some nights. Recently, there was a murder in the area, and although I have no solid evidence, my gut tells me he did it. I saw the composite sketch of the culprit on the news, and the details of the case sound just like him. I'm thinking that I should tell the police just to be safe. Better late than never, I guess.
In our next story, a wife notices something terrifying about her husband. Narrated by Danielle Patterson from Reddit user SuperHamHams.
I need to start this by saying I'm not a superstitious person by nature. And if this had only happened once, I probably could have ignored it. But twice starts to feel like a pattern, and I'm starting to freak out. The first time was about a month ago, on a Sunday afternoon. My husband and I had had a busy weekend, and we were both looking forward to some downtime to relax before the week started back up again. My husband, Hayden, said he was going out the front to smoke. I was in the kitchen and called back that I'd come and join him in a minute. Sitting on the porch to read sounded great to me, so I went to grab my book from the nightstand. Our bedroom has a window that looks out onto the front porch, and through it, I could see Hayden sitting right in front of the front door. That was strange enough, because our chairs are usually to the side of the door, between a couple of big potted plants. What was even weirder was that he was facing towards the house, like staring in through the open front entry. But what really caught my attention was Hayden's face. He was smiling. At first, I thought maybe he was looking at our dog, which is a sweet thought, right? Then I noticed just how creepy his smile was. It was too wide, like stretched, and he wasn't blinking. He was just staring into the house, not moving. It was unsettling. Part of me wondered if something was wrong with him. Was he having some kind of seizure or a stroke? I picked up my book and peered into the hallway, expecting to see the dog lying by the door and Hayden watching him sleep or something. But the dog was in the kitchen, and Hayden? He wasn't there. I timidly stepped out onto the porch and turned to where our chairs are, between those potted plants. There he was, a cigarette in his hand and his face looking completely normal. Confused, I asked him why he moved the chair. He raised an eyebrow at me. He didn't move it, he said. The chair was exactly where it always was. I stood there for a second, trying to work out if he was playing some kind of prank on me, but he was deadly serious. I sat down and opened my book and told myself it had just been some trick of the light, a weird reflection off the bedroom window or something. After a couple of days, I stopped wondering, and then I forgot all about it. Until yesterday. Hayden and I had just finished a grocery run and pulled into the driveway. I got out of the truck and went to unlock the front door, then headed back to help unload. My husband was leaning into the back of the cab. I figured he was just grabbing some of the bags, but he was rummaging around back there for a long time. So I assumed he must have been looking for something he dropped under his seat or whatever. I asked if he needed any help. No answer. I called out, "Hayden?" Still nothing. I walked around to the other side of the truck so that I could at least grab some of the bags for myself. I opened the door, expecting to see Hayden with his arms stuck under the seat or something. But he wasn't there. All I could see was the open door on the other side of the truck. I straightened up and looked around, trying to see where he went so quickly. I nearly jumped out of my skin when I saw him coming towards me from around the side of the house. He'd gone through the side door to the kitchen with a couple of bags already. But if I hadn't seen Hayden rummaging in the truck a minute earlier, then what had I seen? I couldn't work it out. Like I said, this second instance happened just yesterday, so I'm still processing. But I'm taking solace in one simple fact. Whatever I saw, it was outside our house both times. That makes me think it can't enter our home. I hope I'm not wrong.
The Lincoln Spring Sales event is on now, and there's never been a better time to experience the feeling of driving a Lincoln. Pictures, sunlight through the available panoramic vista roof, music, weather, and maps on the 48-inch panoramic display, and a drive so smooth that inspiration rides up front. Stepping out better than you got in. That's the Lincoln feeling. Get behind the wheel of the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus SUV and discover exceptional offers only at your local Lincoln retailer.
Welcome back to the show. In our final story, a sleeping couple discovers they're not alone. Narrated by Dacey Else from Reddit user Blue Starberry Sky.
This happened about 10 years ago. Back then, I was living with my boyfriend at the time. We were young and couldn't afford much, but luckily his parents owned a second house that they weren't renting out. It was just there, and they were letting us use it with a nice family discount. On the surface, that sounds great, but this house gave me the creeps right from the start. First time I walked in, there was this weird, heavy atmosphere I couldn't explain. It just felt off. But I was a beggar, so I couldn't be a chooser, and we did our best to make the place feel like home. Though that was easier said than done. See, my boyfriend's parents had filled the place with various pieces of furniture and stuff over the years, including some stuff from my boyfriend's grandfather. He collected tribal artifacts like masks and carved figures. I'm sure that to a lot of people they were beautiful, but I had no connection to them, so they were a bit unsettling. One wooden doll always bothered me more than anything else, though. It was a dark figure with a glass cavity where its stomach would be. Inside that cavity were what looked like hair and nail clippings. Just looking at it made me uneasy. Pretty soon after we moved into the house, I began hearing strange noises, footsteps on the stairs, creaking doors when no one was home, random stuff like that. I didn't know what was causing it, so I avoided being home alone as much as possible, but then one night things escalated. I woke up to the sound of my boyfriend gaming in the living room. He wasn't being noisy, but there was this frantic clicking and the sound of someone moving around excitedly. He'd left the hallway light on, too. Kinda grumpy about being woken up, I called out to him to keep it down. The noises stopped instantly. Satisfied, I rolled over to go back to sleep. But I wasn't alone. My boyfriend was right beside me, sound asleep. I stared at him, confused, then looked over my shoulder at the open door.
trying to figure out what I had been hearing from the living room. At that moment, a tall, dark figure walked down the hallway, right in front of our room. It didn't stop, it just flitted across the open doorway. It felt like my blood had turned to ice in my veins. Shivering, I hid under the covers and grabbed onto my boyfriend. He woke up and I told him what I'd seen. I couldn't tell if he believed me, but he could see how scared I was, so he pushed back the covers and shuffled out into the hallway. I heard him walking around the house for a few minutes, but eventually he came back and told me that he didn't find anyone. Somehow I managed to fall back to sleep, but I was on edge after that night, and my boyfriend started to pick up on the house's strange vibe too. A couple weeks later, he admitted to me that the creepy doll, the one with the glass orb in its stomach, was freaking him out too. So we decided to move it to the garage where we wouldn't have to see it every day. Unfortunately, our bedroom was right beside the garage, so there's a chance that wasn't our smartest move. It had been a while since the first incident, and I was honestly starting to hope I had imagined the whole thing. Still, I felt safest in our room. Probably because that thing I saw had walked right past the door and never tried to come in. One night, not long after we moved the doll, my boyfriend and I were both lying in bed watching TV. Suddenly, I felt something touch my foot. It was like a hand had wrapped around it. Before I even had time to scream, there was a pull, like I was being dragged somewhere. I yelled out and clutched at my boyfriend. He was startled for a second before he started laughing because he thought I was messing with him, but then he felt the same thing, a hand on his foot and a sharp tug. The blood drained from his face as he looked at me. We yanked back the covers, trying to find a logical explanation for what had happened, but there was nothing there. We eventually settled back into bed, but we left the covers off for a while, just in case. We didn't stay in the house much longer after that night. We couldn't face the thought that there was something dark in there with us. To this day, I still get goosebumps just thinking about it, wondering what it was and if it's still there, waiting.
Want more Disturbed? Check out our Patreon for member-exclusive content, early merch access, and other cool perks. I'm your host, Doug Bailey, and this has been Disturbed, a production of Killer Podcasts and part of the Evergreen Network. For more paranormal and true crime shows, visit killerpodcasts.com. Follow our social channels at Disturbed Podcast on Instagram or Disturbed_pod on Twitter. If you enjoyed the show, please consider subscribing and reviewing on your favorite listening platform. Share your own true horror story at disturbedpodcast.com. Music by Epidemic Sound and by Carl Casey at White Bat Audio. Our producer is Declan Roars. Audio engineering by Nathan Corson, Will Pritz, and Sean Rule Hoffman. Executive producer Bridget Coyne. Until next time, stay safe out there.